Hello cyberpunks, welcome back to I Dream of Indie. Old Gamer Joe here with you today for another review with the latest neon-soaked title, Lithium City, which is developed and published by Nico. It will be releasing onto Steam on June 15th, 2020, and it's an isometric action game. 2020 will be looked back on for a lot of unfortunate happenings, but cyberpunk games at least were a shining beacon of hope for us all, with a lot of great releases so far this year, and thankfully Lithium City continues that tradition. Lithium City is a game that tells its story through just a few cutscenes scattered across the 6 different chapters, but you're going to find out that this is a title that's more about action than words, and that won't take long to discover. The majority of the game will have you playing as a nameless blue-haired character who feels like she's straight out of an anime. Lithium City is not a game that relies on a complicated control scheme. Your main attacks are performed with the right trigger, and you can quickly dash out of the way of harm if you use the left trigger. Dashing won't just help you in combat, you'll also need it to avoid certain obstacles throughout the different areas of this game, or you might end up getting smashed. You can pick up various weapons that are scattered across the different levels or that you beat out of your foes with the Y button, and you can then use those weapons by aiming with the stick and then pulling the right trigger. There is a decent variety of weapons, not a ton in Lithium City, but a few, including guns and grenades, and you'll also pick up some weirder stuff later on in the game like swords, which you can use to slash your enemies up with. Hitting the right bumper allows you to toss that weapon, so if you find yourself in a situation where you're out of ammo but still want to deal out a little extra damage, go ahead and toss your gun at your enemy's face. That's really all there is to the combat system, and Lithium City ends up a better game for it. I had a blast deciphering the different rooms, deciding how I would approach each situation, and then meticulously taking out enemies in a variety of different ways. The gameplay did remind me a good amount of Hotline Miami, but that's certainly not a bad game to be compared to. But the way you utilize your dash in this game helps it to step out of the shadow of its inspirations, giving the gameplay a unique feel of its own. I was very impressed with the fluidity of this combat, and I had an absolute blast taking down the many enemies that you'll come across. There are 6 chapters in Lithium City, 5 of which are quite manageable in terms of difficulty, but the 6th really ramps it up to a point where it got a little bit frustrating, including a chase scene that got me pretty annoyed. If you're feeling confident going into the final stretch of Lithium City, you're in for a wake-up call, but even leading up to that extremely difficult chapter, you're going to die in this game. You're going to die quite a bit, and it becomes expected, but you're also going to learn on each run and find new ways to approach that run. There are no difficulty options in this game, and like I mentioned though, the first 5 chapters, they were pretty manageable. I was able to get through them, but the 6th chapter is going to be brutal, so be prepared for that. I really fell in love with the art style of Lithium City. It's a nice mix of 2D and 3D blended together with some beautiful neon colors. The game goes all Grand Stream Saga with no faces on the characters whatsoever, but it strangely kind of works for this universe, and if you don't know what that game is, I'm an old person, go look it up. But the environments are very pleasing to the eyes. I love the color palette of this game, and all of the enemy types are really interesting to look at throughout. Of course, this is a cyberpunk game, so it needs a great soundtrack, right? Well, luckily for you, it gets it, because this is a fantastic score of music. Some hard-hitting, thumping, synthy songs are on display here. I think why I said to myself so many times in this game, one more run, is because of the soundtrack, because it really does pump you up. It keeps you pushing forward. Of course, the gameplay is addicting as well, but the soundtrack really does help to support the gameplay. The kick drum hits you right in the chest in this game. If you have a good subwoofer, you'll really feel it. And I do have to say, these are some fantastic sound effects that they use in Lithium City. I really felt each blast of the gun whenever I would fire off a shotgun shell or let off a grenade. The whole house was shaking with bass. Overall, I really like the sleek presentation of this game. If you're a cyberpunk fan, you're definitely in for a treat, which makes it a little bit unfortunate here that I do have to mention a few hiccups that I came across, including 3 crashes on 3 separate occasions. Fortunately, they were never game-breaking, and my progress was saved without me having to go back and do sections over again, but it is an unfortunate blemish on what is otherwise a really sleek package. In the end, Lithium City is a game that captures the spirit of Hotline Miami, but stands out on its own too, with a wonderful aesthetic and very sleek, fast-paced gameplay. Yes, that final chapter did teeter on being a little bit on the cheap side, but with so many positive aspects, it was easier for me to overlook than perhaps it will be for some of you out there. If I'm being completely honest with you, which I always am, I wasn't expecting a lot out of Lithium City, but what I got was one of my favorite games of 2020 so far, and a great action game that no fan of the genre should miss out on. We hope you enjoyed our review today of Lithium City. If you did, please do consider hitting the subscribe button below to help us bring a voice back to the voiceless ones in gaming. If you really like us, head on down to the description box below where you can support us in a variety of different ways. However you end up supporting I Dream of Indie, thank you so much, and we appreciate you greatly.